This is a picture that was taken over 20 years ago. That's me right there, standing next to a giant alien that my dad had just started building. And here I am, 20 years later, sitting underneath that same exact alien. And as you can see, not much has gotten done on him. His feet have been lost, he no longer has those exhaust pipes, half of his tail has been chewed off, and at one point there were even birds living in his mouth. So, rather than fixing this guy up, today we're gonna start a new alien from scratch.
Subscribe. Welcome to my channel. I'm John. If you've been here before, welcome back. I love aliens. I started the first Alien over 20 years ago. But the obsession for me started many years ago. Hold on. This is my alien that my grandmother bought me in '79. Hello. He's awesome. He sits on my desk. My desk is in the shop. He gets dirty. He's missing parts and pieces, but it's always been an inspiration for me. And I thought now's the time for me just to build a full-size one. Out of my head, all organic, no references. So let's get started. I could have finished the older Alien, but I wasn't really excited about the pose and how he was looking. Plus, I wanted to show you guys how I built that one start to finish. Like a lot of other makers and artists, I have a lot of scrap metal just laying around, and you know, it has potential. I can't throw it away. And today was the day I was going to use some of that scrap for the Alien. All the materials that I used on this were left over kind of out in the storage yard. This is all out of my head, so no real plan. The only plan is to make a cool alien. Like, I see it in my head, it's just not in focus yet. All I'm doing is tacking the legs. I'll step back, take a look at it. If I don't like the placement, I'll just kick it to break the tack and reposition it and weld it somewhere else. Once I'm happy with the placement of the legs, I will then weld them completely to the frame. Nothing's permanent when I start welding. I'll get the position basically where I think it's gonna be, and then I'll pose again and make sure it's in the position that I want it to be in, then I'll weld it up. Still doesn't mean it's permanent. I can come back anytime, cut it and reposition and re-weld it. This is just a sketch out of metal. It's not permanent until I blow foam. Even here, I spent some time like positioning the arms and how I wanted them, but I realized in his motion, they would actually be the other way. You really have to like walk around and become the sculpture and think about how it would actually be moving, and just cut them off and reposition them and weld them back up. For me, the tail is the whole personality of the sculpture. I'll begin cutting small wedges and bending, and then tacking that and bending and cutting and bending to try to get this shape that I want. And I could stand back, I love it as I'm doing it, and then I don't like it at all, and I'll just cut it off. Once you get into that zone and you see how it's coming, it all starts to come into focus, and then you really can move and manipulate and get it exactly how you see it in your mind. Once I started manipulating the end of the tail, I realized that wasn't the part that was bothering me. It was at the base. I wanted that base to really come up and almost frame the whole alien as it came around, and then almost in the front of them, it created this whole spiral visual encompassing of the creature. A lot of people might be intimidated by welding steel and actually doing a structure out of it. Nothing's permanent. You can always cut it with a grinder, reposition it, you can really bend it and get it where you want it, and then take your time at the end and weld it all together. When I'm doing the hands, I basically just made the bones for the fingers, and everything was tacked on. The hands really tell a story, how you can position them, and how the thumb muscles are gonna go, and they really begin to tell this story just in the hands. I will tack those into place because I know then I could just bend it, and once I put epoxy around it, they're not going anywhere, which creates a problem later down the road. Now I'm gonna blow foam. So I have to prep the base, cover that with plastic. I don't want that foam getting into there. That's really hard cleaning out. The great thing about sculpting with the foam is it's both types of sculpting. It's addition and subtraction. So I'm starting off with adding the foam, and I wanna add more than I need. Then I do subtraction, carving, and carve it down to the right shape. This foam, you can start carving 2 minutes after you've blown it. It's rock hard. And a lot of inspiration just comes from the big slices, the big cuts, the big, there's part of the head. You're just gonna start removing the things that aren't an alien. And a lot of them are obvious. So the minute you make those cuts immediately, you start getting butterflies, you get excited, and you just wanna keep going. And after making those big cuts, that was it for day one. Good morning. This is day 2 of sculpting a large alien. It is currently 3 o'clock in the morning. I love getting up early. Nobody's around. I got my coffee, I'm ready to rock and roll, and we're gonna see just how far I can get today on this guy. When I'm sculpting, and I said earlier, it's not quite in focus yet, I see it, and it slowly begins to come into focus. The best way I can describe it, it's like having a headache. You have a headache, you know you have a headache, and eventually that headache goes away, but you don't really remember the exact time that headache went away. That's how I relate sculpting. As I'm sculpting and I'm shaping it in, and I know it's there, and then all of a sudden I stand back and there it is. And I love that feeling. That's just the best. Day 3, we start off with getting new supplies for the belly and new knives. Apparently I left the knife set at the other job site when I was sculpting all that rock work. Day 3 of sculpting the alien. It is 12:30 right now. Getting a late start. I had some other things I had to take care of this morning. One of them being get my pallet jack and some scaffolding from one of the job sites. Because nobody wants to fiberglass off of a ladder. You'll see me use a cheese grater when sculpting foam too. That's another tool that can really get into those tight areas and begin to rasp out the concaveness that you'd like. One tool that makes fast work out of this is a grinder with a 40 grit flapper wheel. It just eats it like something that eats a lot of stuff. The downside of that is when you bring out the grinder and the flapper wheel, you just have to accept it's going everywhere. All over the shop, all over yourself, everywhere. So a respirator and a grinder and you're gonna be done very quickly. So at the end of day 3, I had finished all the shaping out of the foam that I needed to do in order to prepare for fiberglassing on day 4. So on day 4, we begin the day with loading up a new roll of mat. This is extremely heavy, but we put up a new roll of mat, bring out the resin, and I have Adam starting to tear off 1 foot square sections of fiberglass mat. After Adam had prepared all of the fiberglass mat into 1 foot squares, we were ready to start fiberglassing.
He's over there on that part. Come around. The base of the tail is already hard. Already hard.
When I fiberglass, I kick my fiberglass off extremely hot. I know that I'm fiberglassing in a base and I'm gonna be extended out here. The weight of that fiberglass and me pouncing on it is gonna really begin to wiggle. So I kick it off extremely hot so it begins to cure and get hard and follow right behind me. So when I'm out at the end and I'm pouncing it, it's not wiggling because it's already cured. Before I call it a day, I always like to do just a little bit more to get me excited about coming in the next day, and I thought, why not work a little bit on the mouth? And then I discovered a bucktooth. Like I said, the steel is just a sketch. So I figured I'd just cut the steel, which was creating that bucktooth out. But the vibrations of me on that steel with the saw began to wiggle the fingers loose, because remember I just tacked those. But no big deal, I'll just tack it on. But I'm out of gas. So I have to run to the gas store to get more gas for the welder, and the gas store is out of gas. So I had to run to another area to get the gas. So it was a horrible ending to a day. Day 5, I'm planning on fiberglassing the top of the alien head, which is a great opportunity for me to show you guys how I do fiberglass. And if you're not interested in learning about fiberglass, you can just skip forward to this time code here. So today, day 5? Day 5. Okay. Good morning, day 5 here. Adam helped me fiberglass yesterday. Now, Adam had never fiberglassed before. It seems like a lot of people are intimidated by fiberglass, and don't be. It's so easy. I love it. This is 3/4 ounce. See how you can see through it? It's thin, not very structural. One thing you never wanna do is you never wanna use scissors. You never wanna cut your mat. Always tear it. Reason being is once this gets hard, that creates a sharp edge. Now, if you try to lay that up to it, that is the weakest point, it will snap. Always tear your mat. That way, when it lays over top, they all intertwine and lock together. So when you're doing bigger stuff, you don't wanna use 3/4. You're gonna wanna use 1.5 ounces, which is this. You can't see through it. Now, fiberglass will never lay on a 90 degree. It does not do that. Corners, you can use your veil. Veil, it's almost like silk. People use this on surfboards. It's flexible when it's cured, but it's not structural. If you wanna go with structural, you need to go with roving, which is over there. Hold on.
Didn't you just say not to cut fiberglass?
Yeah. This is 18-ounce woven. I just grabbed a pair of scissors and cut this. Don't do that. When you cut this, you have to use pinking shears. They're the shears that make the zigzag. If you cut this straight, it has a chance to propagate. That means if it starts to tear, it's gonna continue and tear down that straight line. Pinking shears give you the zigzag. And with that, I'm gonna show you guys how I fiberglass. Make sure you have baby powder, rubber gloves, cup of acetone, and a bunch of trash brushes. Can you hear me, the trash brushes? And trash brushes. It's a messy job. It's a messy, so you wanna try to keep clean as much as you can. I'm always using tin foil. Just a little spray glue down. And then you start with a clean surface. As you see, that has a straight edge. So you just take that, rip that straight edge off, good to go. These are cups left over from yesterday. You can just roll them, and you got another good cup ready for today. So you wanna glove up, baby powder, slides right on. And now we're ready to fiberglass. I do a lot of fiberglassing, so it's easier if I just buy a 55-gallon drum of resin. This is a very hot MEK because I like to get things done quickly. Now, there's a ratio, 10%. If you just kind of blip, that's enough. And then you mix it up with your paint sticks. Also make sure you're in a very well ventilated area. I have a huge shop, big door, big fan. So when I raise those up, it evacuates everything out of here so fast. The shirt's moving, it's great, love it. But Dylan can't have all this sound on. So now what I do is I just wet it out. You're just gonna pour this onto it, you just work it in. It feels stiff when you do this. That's because there's starch in here. Now, usually you can let it sit for a little bit, that's fine. But the trick to that is you apply it with the resin down. And then as you start working it, it's gonna work it through, loosen it all up, and be able to lay down nicely. Now you begin to apply it, just like that. See all these wrinkles that happen? Great thing about matte is it's all like this. So when you start pushing down on it, they start to move. Don't just brush it. You know, you can start to brush some of the wrinkles out, but you see this big wrinkle? If I were to do that, I'd always have a big wrinkle. So you pounce that. So you wanna get the majority of it down, brush it on, brush it on. See this little wrinkle here? Pounce that out, pounce that out. Happy little pounces. Done. This side, now I gotta get the other side. I apply a second layer. Want to keep it overlapped, and that just melts right into it. And you saw I put the wet side down, so now I can just work all of this out. And it's gonna work that resin through the mat. See that air bubble? That is the big enemy of fiberglass. Air makes fiberglass weak. You want to get all of the air out. So once you have it down, see all of this? If I were to leave that, those would all get extremely hard, and then your hand's gonna get stuck. So you take this, and it rolls everything out. This also helps bring the resin to the surface to allow a smoother finish. This is gonna take all the air bubbles out, all the fish bones, lay all those down, and you just work it. You might be wondering why I didn't fiberglass the body and the arms. I needed structure, so the fiberglass gave me the structure at the base and the tail. I also knew I wasn't done sculpting the body and the arms. I need to go deeper into the ribs, and all of that doesn't need to be fiberglassed. I can just apply the epoxy right over top of the foam. This is Habitat Fire Shield. It is invented by one of the gods. Two-part, A, B, mix them together, 50-50. Start setting up in about 90 minutes so you can actually go in and get tighter detail. I'm not sponsored by them, by the way. I love this stuff and I want to share this with you guys. Fantastic. All right, so the trick with saran wrap, make sure your surface is wet. And then you just blow on it, tear that off. I'm gonna cut into the clay. When I cut into the clay, see how it makes such a sharp line? It's just sharp lines. Then you get all these little boogers and everything. So then you gotta come back and try to smooth it out, and it's not quite as detailed. So what the saran wrap does, you have your clay, you put this film over top. Now when I push this in, I'm not cutting it. It's pushing everything down, creating your curved edge already with all the detail in it. The saran wrap sometimes crinkles up and it creates great wrinkles for your tool to follow. So I know I want this to look like it's tucked back into there. These are just general shapes, but this to me is like an organic muscle strands. So I'll tuck in a little bit into here and it's already gonna pull it in. And then I'll just begin to start to make all my little creases and whatnot that go through there. When you look at the folds of your skin, you've got skin going every which way as well as other stress cracks coming this way. And then you'll put a couple stress cracks and that really sells it. Then when you peel it off, there it is.
Oh, come on.
See how the saran wrap created organic wrinkles into there? You're not gonna see it far away, but when you come up and you're like, wow, this is hard sculpture, and you're like, how did they do all that? Saran wrap! That's how they did it.
Oh, that was really good.
This is the real fun part for me, sculpting. You really bring it to life. The epoxy allows me to kind of roll out large strands and really begin to define the muscle tone, how the muscles actually intertwine and what the tendons would do. Like, you're really just sculpting yourself. You're constantly looking at different references on your own body and accentuating that, making them larger and putting them into place. This is why I didn't fiberglass the upper body. I wasn't quite feeling the ribs yet, and I know if I start working on one area and I'm thinking about the ribs, they're gonna come to me. So I'm able to go back at any time and sculpt into the foam. So I'm going through my wood rack trying to find some 1/4" MDF. I'm gonna freehand out some exhaust pipes. I don't wanna use any CNC machines or anything. This is all just freehand, out of my head, making it up as I go along. I like to call them exhaust pipes. If any of you guys know actually what they are, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So I'll take the MDF and I'll set it on top of the trash can table that we all use. And then I'll just start eyeing up what I think is the right size and the whole general shape of the exhaust pipe, and then just stab it in the back. And if it doesn't stick, just sharpen it up again and stab it again. Once I have the general shape that I like, I'll just trace it out and make another one. Rinse and repeat for the small. After that, I'll pull them out and blow them with some foam and begin shaping out the foam. The thing that I love about building this alien is I'm right. There is no wrong because it's my alien out of my head. Once I'm happy with the location, I'll just squirt a little foam in there, wait 2 minutes, and blend them into the body. I wanted the head to be smooth, fast, and lightweight, so I'm doing Bondo. And I'll mix up the Bondo and slap it all on. I put it on pretty thick in one direction. I'll use my Bondo with my patent pending phone book. Once your page gets dirty, you just rip it off and you start over with a brand new slate. Clean off my tools, which gives me just enough time for that Bondo to turn green, which means it's almost rubbery. Just get a thumbnail into it. Hit it with the cheese grater in the opposite direction and it becomes smooth very quickly. Once I have the base laid down on the Bondo of the head, I can then start to form the mouth. The mouth is the hood ornament of this sculpture. So there's a lot of, okay, this looks cool, and then go back and rework, go back and work. The mouth is always being worked on, but in order to add a little more excitement too, why not prime the head? When I'm sculpting the feet, they play a big part of storytelling. So the foot in the front that I'm working on now, he's actually stepping with. So there's more weight on the back one than there is on the front one. So the front one is sleeker, less wrinkles puddled up at the bottom, whereas the back one is crunched down and mushroomed out, carrying the weight. So when you're looking at it, the front one actually is lighter, thinner, and the back one is squished with more weight. The ankle, the skin on the ankle, the way how it has to twist and look because it's actually folded in and the tendons are running along there. But I also have to keep in mind the other foot is a little more open, so the same amount of skin would be on the other one just folded under itself. So there's this give and take of movement when creating the skin out of the epoxy. When sculpting, the whole sculpture has to tell a story. Every little aspect that you're looking at, the weight distribution of the feet, the way how the body has twisted, the way how the muscles all interact, the way how tendons move and positions of muscles, every last bit, you should be able just to look at a section of this and that tells a story. When you see me sculpt this, you'll see I only use 3 tools. Basically, it's a chip brush. You can use the back of this, make out your larger details, smooth it out by flipping that around. I will take one metal sculpting tool that I use and that feathers everything in, but it's gonna stick to it. So the next tool, just take a paint stick and shape it out to whatever shape you need, round the edges over. The wood is going to maintain the water in it and allow it to glide over your epoxies a lot easier. This will not glide. This glides over top of the saran wrap, this glides over top of the epoxy, this keeps it all wet, as well as a spritzer bottle. You'll see I use a lot of spritzer bottles in this. Let's talk about the spines on the tail. So I'll just start off with a piece of MDF, sketch out the idea. I'll cut it out with a jigsaw, finish it up on the bandsaw. And then to make a smaller one, I'll just trace that out on the MDF and then draw one a little bit smaller on the inside and just rinse and repeat until I have an ascending order of all the spines that I'd like. And after that, I will super glue them in place until I can lock them in with epoxy. So I start working on the mouth, and of course I could have 3D printed teeth and they would have came out great. But again, I want this all made by hand. So I'm actually sculpting every tooth and sanding it and making each one by hand. There was some controversy going on in the shop, talking amongst themselves about whether I was gonna have the small mouth or the large mouth coming out. Personally, small mouth. I don't want that large mouth coming out, but it's kind of iconic. So I thought, well, I'm making one, might as well make two. So I made them interchangeable. So I can have the small one in, or I can have the longer one in. I just shoved a piece of 3/4 PVC pipe in and then sculpted over top of the collets. That way I could have the small one or the longer one in. As you can see, the mouth is always ever changing. You work on it a little bit, you like it, you don't like it, you grind it, you work on it some more. It's that headache that eventually does go away. It's now time to start adding the real teeth. I knew I had to build up the gums and then I'm gonna shove them into there. That always gives a natural look of the tooth in the gum line, but I knew I wasn't sold on it, so it's just a placeholder. Get them in there to when I can come back and carve it better by subtracting rather than adding. Once I had the small mouth and the backside sculpted the way I wanted it, I still had that piece of PVC in there. So I can cover the back of the small mouth with saran wrap, shove my epoxy in and shove that in, and then feather it all down. Then once it hardens, it's a perfect negative of the back of the small mouth and it fits right in there, looks great. So here you can see the buildup of the gum allowed me with enough to go back and start carving out how I really want them to look.
What you want to do is you want to pull this real tight as you're cutting so it pinches and causes a bind. It is good.
Hey.
Staying on theme with making changes on the fly, the tail had to go. I wasn't happy with the way how the tail came and then just across there. So I wanted to flow more with the whole tail coming around, and I wanted to have my own shape to it. So I just cut out a piece of MDF, sized it up onto there, cut it, epoxied it on, and start shaping it out. Hands have to be one of my favorite things to sculpt. It's so hard too, because I could sculpt the perfect hand and you would look at it and think it's wrong because you see your hand more than you see my hand. But I would sculpt my hand and it would look weird to you. But hands are just fantastic things to sculpt. Like if you were to actually do a cross section of a finger, it's not round. It's almost more like the cross section of a snake's body. It's tapered with weight at the bottom and your tendons on top. There's a lot of storytelling in sculpting hands.
You know what time it is?
What time is it?
It's 2:30.
Doing all the dental work for the actual teeth themselves, I use glazing putty. Glazing putty is very smooth, it's very soft. Over time it gets really hard. So it's much easier to be able to get into the smaller areas with sandpaper and sand and shape the actual shape. Another trick, you can take just straight up primer, brush it on, self levels, no sanding. As I was doing the mouth, thinking I'm coming into the final touches on it, I realized it's not doing what I want it to do. I just want it open, you know, just like it's screaming without making a sound because, you know, in space, no one can hear you scream.
Hey now.
figured I'd talk to you guys a little bit about H.R. Geiger. The best way I could describe H.R. Geiger would be Salvador Dali for the macabre. He's just out of this world. He works out of his head. Just absolutely a wizard with the airbrush. Two documentaries that I would recommend is Dark Star and H.R. Geiger Revealed. Those are two excellent documentaries. They talk about his childhood, they talk about his creativity and how he grew up, how he developed his art form. Just beautiful documentaries. He's no longer with us. To me, it's paying homage to his art by sculpting this alien. Very inspirational person. Once I've feathered in all of the glazing putty and it's primed, it's now time to sit back and figure out how exactly I want to paint this thing. Now I could just blast this whole thing with a gun and paint it all black, but to me that always leaves everything flat. You have to start with layers, layers and layers. Overlapping your washes leaves darker in one area, lighter in another. If you were to actually look at human skin, it is not just one color. It is 4 different colors, all mimicked in and out, and just it's a web of color. And the only way I can reach that is doing everything by hand and layer after layer after layer. The first layer I do is a black wash. It's to get into all the nooks and crannies, and I want to be messy with this. I want this thing to be splotchy. That's going to add the depth that I want when I start adding the other colors on top. I always wet my surfaces before I start adding a wash. That way they don't stick to something dry. It's a nice even glaze over top. Best way to describe doing a wash over top of something is it's almost like you asked a 6-year-old to wash your car and they're going to wash it and wipe it off this way. So there's a lot of spots missing, a lot of parts and pieces that are darker than others, and that's exactly what you want. A bad car wash job. Your first layer always takes the longest. You have to cover 100% of it. After that, your other colors aren't covering 100%. They're splotchy, they're here and there, and you're more or less picking up highlights and shadows and accentuating certain areas of it. Once you start adding that first color, that first wash, that's when the excitement really starts to happen, at least for me, because it's no longer monochromatic. One solid color through and through like a carrot. It is now beginning to get depth and layers and really start to breathe. A lot of people out there might not know there's different bases. There's hot bases and cold bases. For an alien, you get something like this, I'm using cold bases, which means all of my blacks are a blue base. They're not a red warm base. So everything is colder, and the thinner it pulls out, you can almost see a little more blue than you can black. Light hits it a certain way. So there's a lot more thought than just black, flat, satin. You have to figure out where that black came from. It came from the cold side. So it's going to leave this feeling more cold. The next colors that I'll be adding are variations of grays. Again, still staying with the cold base. I'm just dry brushing over some of the higher areas, as well as giving more of a wash over top of the head. Anytime you go light over dark, it's going to make it milky. And I wanted that milky film over top of his head. Once you're adding the lighter colors over top of the washes, it really begins to separate the two, almost creating atmosphere. It's accentuating the time and effort in the sculpture itself. I still wanted to add almost a mechanical feel to it, but using colors, using a real copper paint that I could then patina over top of that and then keep blending more colors over, but there's still a metal sheen to the whole thing. I also wanted to add, you know, some contrast to the metal muscles that he has that are the muscle fibers, separate that visually. So it gets your eye to wander around, and plus it's my alien, so I can paint it however I want. Bones are white, so why not start off painting these things white? And then eventually I'll weather them and age them and make them look old, and then I realized I'm just gonna age and weather them until they're black, so I stopped painting them white and just went right to black. Of course, you have to use an airbrush. That's Geiger's tool of choice. An airbrush helps add shadows, create depth where there is none. When I use an airbrush too, there's different tricks that I like to use to help create skin tone, flesh tones. If you've ever like slapped your arm and looked at it really close at how the blood vessels start to pop in different variegations. So I can use that to break up such a monotonous tone. And the depth, like when you're further away, it really looks like something. It gives you something to look at as opposed to just the sculpture. I'll start to tie everything together with more washes over top, bringing the hue of the entire sculpture all more cohesive. I don't know if you guys have ever used an airbrush. They're fantastic tools. Press it down, allows air. The more you pull back, the more material coming out. So by using that double action, you can really begin to create depth very quickly, such as streaking lines to almost create veins hidden underneath the surface. And the final step in this alien is clear. Automotive Clear. Automotive Clear is the best thing out there. It is so durable. They say you can only put it over top of this, over top of that. You can put it over top of anything. Believe me, I have. It's fantastic. It withstands the UV outside, and I live in Florida. It holds up to the worst things out there, which are kids. Kids ruin everything. If it's out in public and kids can get to it, it better have Automotive Clear over it. I have an entire mixing station of automotive. I absolutely love it. I've been using it for 30 some odd years now. I just mix up by eye, get the color just perfect, and then paint, and it's on there forever. I use a SATA with headlights to clear. Beautiful gun to clear with. I'll vacuum out the air into the crush cup, which allows me to paint upside down. If you guys have ever used those, you know what I'm talking about. And then I will just begin clearing. With the alien all cleared, there was just one more final touch. I used liquid mirror chrome to give the teeth the real chrome look that they deserve. And now, let's take a look at it. I really hope you guys enjoy this. I'm trying to figure out what to sculpt next, so leave a comment below if you have any suggestions. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out. My son and I put a video out once a month. 20 days ago, this was a pile of steel that I had outside, 2 kits of epoxy, 1 box of spray foam, and a whole lot of ambition. I started that first alien 20 years ago, and it's pretty poetic that this one took 20 days. Yeah, just get the jitters out. Get the jitters out. What am I saying?
If you don't give a fuck about fiberglass, skip forward. Like, something along, that's the
Okay,
that's the
okay. It's this one.
Whoa, I didn't know his mouth did that.
Yeah. Now the teeth are chrome, I have a fever. And the only thing to cure this fever is more cowbell.
It's like not, that doesn't even make sense.
It sounded so much better in my head. Give me pulling it from here.
There you go. Yeah, just look right at the camera. Stop looking at the camera. Stop.